Starting today, my husband wants us to live with my parents. I was caught off guard by this sudden suggestion. We just said goodbye to my father, who recently passed away after being sick for a long time. Despite the sadness of the funeral still lingering, my husband packed up and left our house. He said we're moving to a villa my father left me. When we got there, my in-laws were already settled in. My name's Natalie, I'm 33, and I'm a designer who's just started living on my own. I've been living with Justin for 3 years now since we got married. My career as a designer is flourishing and I'm known in my field. I earn well enough to have the apartment under my name. Sadly, my mother passed away during my college years, and last year, my father was diagnosed with cancer. Despite his brave fight, the disease progressed, and the doctors warned us to prepare for the worst. My father has always been there for me, especially since I started working. He's been a constant support and a vital part of my life. Learning about my father's illness shook me to the core. As his health deteriorated, I couldn't sleep, consumed by worry and fear. My husband asked about my dad's condition often, but his concern felt hollow. It seemed like he was waiting for the worst to happen. He's always felt insecure about earning less than me, and I wished he'd take pride in my success and be there for me when times get tough. He had a playful side, always wanting to win, even in simple things. My dad assured us not to worry and to focus on our relationship, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we should visit him while we still can. I was finding it harder to hide my growing frustration with my husband. In the beginning, our marriage was full of love and joy, but his insensitive comments about my dad's illness changed things. I realized he wasn't the same loving husband anymore. He works from home and thinks having someone around distracts me, but I plan to work from home too once I'm independent. I decided to rent a small office and commute, making it easier for me to visit the hospital. Meanwhile, my husband stayed home, leaving all the household chores for me to handle. Juggling work, taking care of my father, and coming home exhausted, I often found a mess waiting for me, with dishes left unwashed. It was clear he only thought of himself, disregarding my feelings. Living with him made me realize how little he understood me, leaving me feeling deeply lonely. Then my father passed away. We had already sold our family home as we had discussed with him. As I busied myself with funeral arrangements, my husband seemed distant, more focused on phone calls or disappearing altogether. I pleaded with Justin to help me during this difficult time, but his phone interrupted our conversation. When he finally hung up, he brushed off my request, claiming he was busy with work calls. My frustration with him grew, especially amidst the turmoil of losing my father. His demeanor had turned colder, leaving me feeling even sadder. On the day of the funeral, Justin spent a long time chatting with his parents, leaving me feeling alone among the attendees. Despite the tension, the funeral proceeded smoothly, and we were able to wrap up the proceedings without any major issues. Out of the blue, my husband suggested we move in with his parents, as if it were the most natural thing to do. He even joked about divorce if I disagreed. I couldn't believe how casually he said it, especially considering the recent loss of my father. Fueled by grief and frustration, I retorted, "Live with them where? We don't even have a spare room here." In truth, one room in our apartment served as my husband's workspace, filled with his work stuff. Despite us not having kids, he used the space as if it were his own personal domain. "It's the villa you inherited," he said with a grin. I was taken aback. While we'd sold the family home, the villa held special memories of my father and me. I was determined to keep it that way, but my husband didn't seem to care about my feelings and kept pushing his own agenda. Living in that villa would be tough, I tried to explain, but he brushed it off. His parents had already made plans to move there, likely arranged during the funeral. With its spaciousness and peaceful setting, it was probably an appealing choice for them. Their move was already in motion, leaving no room for me to object. Every time I tried to speak up, my husband's disapproval was evident. "You're always thinking about yourself. Your constant absence because of your father's illness and emergencies has taken a toll on me. Do you even realize how much I've had to endure because of your obsession with your father?" His words were harsh, plunging my world into darkness. "Now that your father is gone, you need to listen to me." His year-long struggle was too much to bear. His callous remarks cut deep, leaving me in disbelief. I didn't want to accept that this was who my husband truly was, but it was clear he had little regard for my father or me. I couldn't shake the memory of my father's pain during his final days in the hospital. My father wouldn't have wanted me to just follow my husband's orders, leaving me behind. And he certainly wouldn't have wanted me to abandon my own feelings. In that moment, any love I had for my husband seemed to disappear. I couldn't shake the feeling of bitterness knowing he was excited about the villa while I was still mourning my father's death. Despite my emotions, I tried to warn him. Living in a villa might not turn out as you expect. I highly doubt that, was his response. With that, I had to accept his decision. I packed only the essentials and left our home. My husband looked puzzled at my sparse belongings, but I simply told him, I'll come back for the rest later. I couldn't bear to exchange any more words with him. It was painful to see the faces of my in-laws, who I imagined were eagerly awaiting my father's death and were now happily moving into the villa. I followed my husband in silence, unable to bear the thought of my cherished place being taken over by his desires. While technically a villa, it's more like a cozy family home by the sea, nestled in a neighborhood where life is simple and peaceful. Despite its tranquil surroundings, it's conveniently close to the city center, making it a valuable piece of property. As I stepped out of the station, memories of my childhood flooded back. I remembered how my father used to carry me home on his back after I fell asleep on the train ride. When we reached the villa, my in-laws were already there. I couldn't shake the feeling of suspicion, realizing that my husband must have secretly given them a key without my knowledge. This discovery only added to my unease. The realization that my in-laws had schemed to move into the villa without informing anyone only deepened my mistrust. As I looked around, I could see the excitement in their eyes as they envisioned their future in this home. Despite being a single-family house, it was filled with sturdy furniture chosen by my father and slightly different European-style decor that must have appealed to my mother. "What a beautiful villa. It's simply perfect," they exclaimed. "Goodbye to that cramped apartment. We're so fortunate to be able to live here now. The view from the second floor is breathtaking. Your father was clever to keep such a wonderful home a secret. We should all enjoy it together, as a family." Their enthusiastic remarks only fueled my irritation. It seemed like they didn't fully grasp the weight of my father's passing and simply saw the villa as a luxurious home they lucked into. Truly, both the location and the house are perfect. "We're lucky your father left us this splendid villa. We owe him our thanks," my husband chimed in, joining his insensitive parents in laughter. They cracked open beers to celebrate the move, oblivious to the solemnity of the occasion. I sighed as I prepared snacks, watching them tarnish the precious memories I had of my parents at the dining table. I chose to bury my feelings and endure the night. The next morning, the tranquility of the villa was shattered by my mother-in-law's piercing scream. I instantly knew something was wrong. As I woke up and hurried to investigate, I found my father-in-law and husband causing a commotion, slightly delayed in reaching the source of the scream. In the bathroom, my mother-in-law lay on the floor, clutching her foot with a panicked look. "The floor collapsed under me," she gasped, clearly shaken by the sudden event. "But the floor seems fine. You must have just slipped, right?" My husband and father-in-law seemed oblivious to the severity of the situation as they examined the spot she indicated. However, the floorboards appeared smooth and undamaged. Despite their reassurances, she remained adamant. My father wouldn't have wanted me to just follow my husband's orders, leaving me behind. And he certainly wouldn't have wanted me to abandon my own feelings. In that moment, any love I had for my husband seemed to disappear. I couldn't shake the feeling of bitterness knowing he was excited about the villa while I was still mourning my father's death. Despite my emotions, I tried to warn him, living in the villa might not turn out as you expect. "I highly doubt that," was his response. With that, I had to accept his decision. I packed only the essentials and left our home. My husband looked puzzled at my sparse belongings, but I simply told him, I'll come back for the rest later. I couldn't bear to exchange any more words with him. It was painful to see the faces of my in-laws, who I imagined were eagerly awaiting my father's death and were now happily moving into the villa. As they examined the floor, I was certain it had collapsed. "Have you tried stepping on that slightly different colored part of the floor?" I questioned. Their expressions shifted to surprise as they focused on the spot I indicated. Stepping between them, I leaned forward and pressed my slippered foot on the distinct section. Whoa, what was that? The floorboard made a distinct sound and gave slightly under my weight, snapping back into place when I lifted my foot. If someone unknowingly stepped on it, they'd think the floor had collapsed. "See, the floor sinks a bit. It's like a trap," I explained. "What?" That's dangerous. Is this house defective? They exclaimed. Calmly, I clarified, it's not a defect. My father intentionally installed it in this house. Why would he do that? They asked incredulously. It's what you'd call a mechanical mansion or a trick house, I revealed. As they examined the floor, I was certain it had collapsed. Have you tried stepping on that slightly different colored part of the floor? I questioned. Their expressions shifted to surprise as they focused on the spot I indicated. Stepping between them, I leaned forward and pressed my slippered foot on the distinct section. Whoa, what was that? The floorboard made a distinct sound and gave slightly under my weight, snapping back into place when I lifted my foot. If someone unknowingly stepped on it, they'd think the floor had collapsed. See, the floor sinks a bit. It's like a trap, I explained. What? That's dangerous. Is this house defective? They exclaimed. Calmly, I clarified. It's not a defect. My father intentionally installed it in this house. Why would he do that? They asked incredulously. It's what you'd call a mechanical mansion or a trick house, I revealed. In reality, my father was a devoted ninja enthusiast. This villa was his pride and joy, a treasure he poured his heart and soul into. As a child, I often tagged along while he tinkered with the house's mechanisms or added new ones. That's why there are traps and hidden mechanisms scattered throughout. A shelf you shouldn't touch, a floorboard that gives way when stepped on, a door that requires a specific sequence to open, concealed passageways, and even secret rooms. Every corner of this villa is infused with my father's dreams and ingenuity, cultivated over many years. While it's perfectly suitable for everyday living for me, who grew up here and learned how to navigate all the traps from my father, it's a different story for my husband and in-laws, who are unfamiliar with its quirks. I did warn you that living here would be challenging, and I also mentioned that it's a place filled with my father's memories. My father's intense ninja obsession is pretty well known among her relatives. It's surprising you didn't know, I remarked. Initially, my husband denied any knowledge, but now he seemed speechless. My in-laws were equally taken aback by this revelation. With our apartment lease already canceled and nowhere else to go, they turned to my husband for guidance on what to do next. Amidst the chaos, both my father-in-law and husband inadvertently triggered another trap, causing them to stumble. As I watched them sprawled on the ground, I couldn't help but chuckle. Feel free to make yourselves comfortable for as long as you need, I said, my tone more sarcastic than welcoming. They had been enamored by the villa's luxury, ignoring my warnings and showing little interest in my father's peculiar hobbies. Now, they were experiencing the consequences of their oversight. Even my attempts to explain the dangers of the traps fell on deaf ears. It's no big deal. We'll get used to it, my husband insisted confidently, and I responded with a knowing smile. I'll head back to the apartment to get things ready for our move, I told them before leaving them at the villa. However, the truth was, I had no plans for moving preparations. Instead, I intended to take a few days off to sort through my father's belongings. As expected, just 2 days later, my husband and in-laws had had enough. During that brief period, I found comfort in being alone, allowing me to slowly regain a sense of positivity as I planned my next steps. Before long, my father's villa gained attention as a unique attraction in the neighborhood. It became known as the Trick Mansion and was regularly featured in local newsletters. Curious visitors would stop by whenever the villa was unoccupied. Looking back, I remembered strangers touring the villa and local children playing nearby, making it a vibrant spot in the community. My father had listed both the villas and our old home's phone numbers in the newsletters. However, with the family home sold, any inquiries would now come to the villa's number. Thanks to my upbringing, I was able to handle calls from foreign visitors as I was proficient in foreign languages. However, my husband and in-laws struggled with foreign languages. In addition to the stress of navigating the villa's traps, they were overwhelmed by unexpected visitors and foreign language calls. Exhausted and sleep-deprived, they retreated to the apartment. Why don't we all just live here together? My husband suggested. After eagerly awaiting my father's passing to claim the villa, they were ready to give it up after just 2 days. Instead of offering them tea, I handed my husband divorce papers that I had already prepared and signed. There's no way we can live together under these circumstances. If you understand, please leave quickly, I said with a heavy heart. I couldn't forgive him for disregarding my feelings and acting insensitively without consulting me or providing any explanation. My husband decided that we would move in with his parents, leaving me with all the household responsibilities as he had never shared them before. Feeling trapped, I confronted him about his selfish decision-making and disregard for my feelings. What happened to the love you used to show me? I couldn't help but laugh at his obliviousness. How could I love someone who wished for my father's death and would rejoice when he passed? Handing him only the divorce papers, I escorted them out of the apartment. Firstly, this is my apartment. If anyone should leave, it's you. Despite my calm demeanor, my husband raised his voice, showing no concern for our neighbors. However, I remained firm. Natally, I'll call the police for trespassing. If you don't want that, leave quietly. Their voices fell silent upon realizing the apartment was in my name. They relied on me financially and didn't have much of their own. However, I had already made up my mind to sever ties before they could begin their lengthy persuasions. Both my husband and in-laws had limited savings. After being forced out of the apartment and unable to return to the villa, they settled into a cheap, low-quality apartment, struggling to make ends meet. They often reminisced about the previous apartment, considering it better. Initially, my husband felt remorseful and apologized frequently. However, as time passed, he became resentful of his parents. With their advancing age, they rarely found stable employment, depleting their savings and pension. Each move only exacerbated their familial discord, as they argued constantly within the thin walls of the apartment. Despite receiving noise complaints, they refused to apologize and instead retaliated, leading to strained relationships with their neighbors. They may soon need to search for another place to live. While my husband used to enjoy working from home, the current apartment lacked the luxury of a dedicated workspace. Struggling to focus on his work, his professional standing and sales took a nosedive. Now he barely makes ends meet with a late-night job at a convenience store and may need to take on multiple part-time gigs to survive. His in-laws regretted allowing their son to dictate their decisions, blaming him for their predicament during their frequent arguments. If only you had been more responsible, we wouldn't be in this mess. You should have double-checked everything. Don't pin the blame on me. She's the one who kept things hidden, they argued. I remained silent as they continued their accusations. If only you had communicated better with your father, none of this would have happened. I never imagined we'd end up like this because of our son, they lamented. Yet they had always harbored hopes of inheriting the villa and were elated when my father passed away. I'll never forget that. Following the divorce, I made significant progress in my career as a designer. To cope with my father's passing and these turbulent events, I incorporated ninja elements into my designs, sharing them on social media platforms. Their popularity surged, catching the attention of a major cosmetics company. To my surprise, they approached me for a project, designing packaging with an Asian flair, incorporating ninja elements. It felt like a way to honor my father's memory, so I eagerly accepted the opportunity and poured myself into the work. The project was a resounding success, propelling my career to new heights. With joy in my heart, I shared updates at my parents' graves, grateful for the chance to honor their memory in such a meaningful way. I chose to keep the mechanical house, preserving it as a special place brimming with memories of my father. I began organizing tours and transformed it into a space where both tourists and local children could enjoy themselves free of charge. Soon, the house gained significant media attention, providing much-needed income to cover ongoing expenses. Additionally, online articles about the house were translated into foreign languages, garnering support from international fans. Some of the donations even came from elderly individuals who shared my father's passion for ninjas. I'm committed to maintaining this enchanting place for years to come. Meanwhile, the mechanical house remains a lively center of activity, especially beloved by local children. Is this the famous mechanical house? Where are the surprises? Show us. With the help of dedicated local volunteers, precautions are taken to ensure the children can play safely. Foreign tourists are often amazed by features like the hidden floorboard doors. Wow, this is incredible. I'm so touched to experience such a unique place. What other surprises await? Despite losing my father and going through a divorce over the villa's inheritance, I believe the gains have outweighed the losses. The villa has evolved into a treasure trove of memories shared with loved ones. Through it all, I've experienced personal growth, embracing the future with renewed optimism and hope. Unlimited access to the spa from now on. How could John keep this a secret? It's just evil, unforgivable. Without my knowledge, my in-laws' place had transformed into a luxury hotel. Now, I can enjoy the spa every day and indulge in delicious meals. But kidding aside, the thought of them using my precious son for their own desires, it's outrageous. They better be ready. My name is Amy, a 35-year-old office worker in the administrative department of a pharmacy. I live with my husband John and our first-grade son Edward. John and I met through a colleague at work, and from the moment we met, we clicked. We quickly became close, started dating, and were married the following year. With my upbeat husband John and lively son Edward, I was leading a life of ordinary happiness. Another thing that makes me glad I married John is having his mother-in-law Renda in our lives. Having lost my mother early, I was raised by my father. My mother-in-law, who I barely knew as a mother figure, treated me like her own daughter since the start of our marriage. Amy, do you have any plans this Sunday? Why don't you and Edward come over for dinner? She would say, always treating us to delicious meals. When Edward was younger, she was a great support for my parenting struggles, even helping to pick him up from daycare when I couldn't leave work. Edward grew very attached to her, and spending Christmas at my in-laws had become a tradition for our family. Amy, your mother-in-law really is the best, isn't she? My colleague Emma would say, listening with an envious look. It was Emma who introduced me to John. They had been friends since college. Emma, with her bright personality and many friends, joined the company with me. We were close enough to share work frustrations, family matters, and personal issues. The pharmacists and other staff were kind, and the company had excellent benefits. Emma and other colleagues with children continued to work full-time as before our pregnancies. Recently, John's been saying he has to work on weekends and isn't home even on his days off, I said, sounding a bit discontented. Are you suspecting him of cheating? Emma laughed. That's laughable. But it was true. John had been away from home more often. Dad, are you working again today? Edward asked, wanting to play with John. I have to work, sorry, John said apologetically. I couldn't say anything back, feeling proud of John for working hard for our family. Little did I know back then that such dedication would turn into such a terrible betrayal. Rock, paper, scissors. Oh, the worst, I sighed. My workplace is usually closed on Sundays and holidays, but about once a month, we're on duty for the hospital gate on Sundays. Accordingly, our pharmacy also opens. It seems Christmas is our turn this time. We played rock, paper, scissors to decide who would work. Unfortunately, I lost. I wanted to spend Christmas at my in-laws, but no choice. I have to do my best, I muttered to myself, only to be chuckled at by the friend sitting next to me. It's not funny, I said to her. She laughed and apologized. Sorry. This woman is also an officer, and we met at the daycare. Her son Henry and Edward are very close, and our families have become friends. We used to go on trips together, though we've been too busy lately. Her husband Tom is also a kind and gentle person. Her name is Isabella. I call her Henry's mom, or Isabella. By the way, Isabella, thanks for playing with Edward in the park last Sunday when I had to work. When John had to take care of Edward on weekends, today I played with Henry in the park, Edward told me. When I asked John about it, he said he ran into Henry and his parents at the park by chance and played together. Really? I asked John, but his vague response frustrated me. By the way, mother-in-law called and said she's looking forward to Christmas. I can't make it, but have fun. I can't go because of work, so it looks like Christmas will be without me this year, I told Isabella. Mother-in-law sounded very disappointed when I told her I couldn't come, but maybe I'll put John to work and have him do a thorough house cleaning. It's been a while, she said, sounding quite excited about the idea. Feel free to use him as much as you like, I laughed as I talked with mother-in-law. It was close to Christmas when this happened. I was working a late shift that day and had to do some unexpected overtime. I hurriedly tried to contact John but couldn't reach him. I ended up calling my son's mobile phone. Mom, are you done with work? Edward answered the phone with a cheerful voice, happy to hear from me. Sorry, Edward, Mom is working late. Can you put Dad on the phone? But Edward said John wasn't there. Wondering where they could be, I said, Hello, Amy. It must be tough working so late. John called and said he's going to be late because of work, mother-in-law said. Hello, Amy. It must be tough working so late. John called and said he's going to be late because of work, mother-in-law said. She told me that while she was preparing dinner in her house. John called her. Sorry, Mom. Amy's on a late shift and I should get home early, but I have to work overtime. Please help. After saying that, John hung up and couldn't be reached again. I was furious with John's actions. He hadn't contacted me at all, thinking maybe he wouldn't get caught. I rushed home. John still hadn't returned, and at the dinner table were mother-in-law and Edward, eating. Mother-in-law said she was happy to have dinner alone with her grandson. Even though I apologize, I really respect mother-in-law. John came home late that night. Hey, about work, you promised to take care of things when I have a late shift. Can you at least keep that promise? I said quietly, what can I do? It's work, I muttered to myself. John raised his voice and even suggested that I quit my job or become a part-timer. When John met me, he praised me for working in healthcare, but that John who said such nice things is no longer here. Our current lifestyle is also thanks to my income. Even though I'm an equal partner to John, he's been doing less housework lately and hasn't been taking care of Edward either. And this guy, hey, you're not cheating, are you? I looked at John with cold eyes. There's no way. You're overthinking, Amy. He suddenly changed his tone and put his arm around my shoulder. That said it all. John has always tried to appease me like this when he's lying or feeling guilty. How dare he cheat? He better be prepared. I was glad Edward was asleep. I didn't want to show our son such an ugly fight. From then on, we acted normal in front of Edward, but when it was just the two of us, we hardly talked or even made eye contact. When I told my colleague Emma about what happened, she said, "That guy is the worst. Let me know if you need anything." That was a cool thing to say. Days passed, and before I knew it, it was Christmas Eve. "Take good care of Edward, will you? Say hello to Renda for me," I said to John, but as usual, he didn't even meet my eyes. "I'm off then," he replied indifferently, and John and Edward left for my in-laws' house. What's with that attitude? It's so annoying, I thought to myself. I spent a lonely Christmas Eve alone in our eerily quiet house. There was no contact from John, but thinking he was having a good time with mother-in-law gave me a little peace of mind. I remembered mother-in-law saying she'd make John clean the house. I wondered if he was being worn out by chores and couldn't help but feel a bit of schadenfreude. Little did I know John was doing something unthinkable at that time. Christmas Day was busy with quite a few patients. Fortunately, I didn't have to work overtime, so I left work and went straight home. I planned to join my in-laws the next afternoon and spend the holiday with mother-in-law. Might as well enjoy some alone time for a change. As I was thinking this, my mobile phone rang. It was mother-in-law. Thinking it was going to be a complaint about John being lazy, I answered. "Amy, Merry Christmas. You must be tired from working on Christmas." "You did great." Mother-in-law's voice sounded kind, not irritated at all. "Merry Christmas, Renda. I wish I could have spent it with you too. Is Edward just playing games?" When I asked, mother-in-law fell silent. Even after calling Renda's name a few times, there was no response. I wondered if it was a bad signal. "Amy, John and Edward didn't come here this year. I spent Christmas alone," mother-in-law finally said, and then began to sob over the phone. I was in a panic. John and Edward definitely left the house yesterday. Where could they possibly be now? There was a long silence between mother-in-law and me. "I'll head over to your place right now," I said. "It's about a 40-minute drive to my in-laws." On the way, my mind was filled with thoughts of Edward. What if they were involved in an accident or some incident? These worries spun in my head. When I arrived at my in-laws, mother-in-law was already waiting outside. As soon as she got into my car, I asked quietly, "Should we call the police?" Mother-in-law slowly shook her head. As I wondered why, mother-in-law began to speak. "Amy, I'm really sorry about my stupid son. Do you think John is having an affair?" Mother-in-law looked at me with teary eyes, and I almost started crying too. "What?" Actually, that's when I remembered something and hurriedly drove to a certain place. When we reached our destination, I called Edward's mobile phone. "Hello? Is Dad nearby?" I asked. "Yeah, he's here." "Come quickly, Mom," Edward answered immediately. Even though we had been apart for only a day, Edward's voice sounded dear to me. "What is it, Amy?" "I'm busy right now." I heard John's voice on the phone, sounding like he wanted to end the call. Immediately, hearing that voice made me feel intense loathing, wanting to confront him. "Renda, you said something about making him clean, right? So, are you at your parents' house now?" John's response on the phone was calm. "Yeah, that's right, Amy. I can't wait to see you." When did he become so adept at lying, as easily as breathing? I thought to myself, should I have quit my job? Should I have tried harder at home? But none of that justifies an affair. Oh, Sorenda, you started a luxury hotel. Does that mean unlimited spa access? How could John keep this a secret? I won't forgive him, I said in a low tone filled with hatred. On the phone, John seemed quite flustered by my accusation. His silence prompted me to continue. Hey, come out of the room. This is the luxury hotel I always wanted to visit. You said it was too expensive, remember? As I spoke fluently, John seemed to give up. I'm sorry, he said in a barely audible voice. I found this place using the GPS on Edward's mobile phone. This hotel, not far from my in-laws, was the place I wanted to visit. The fact that John, who said it was too expensive for me, was enjoying himself here with his mistress infuriated me. Perhaps it showed on my face because on the way to the hotel, mother-in-law kept apologizing. It was then that I found out for the first time that when I worked late shifts, mother-in-law was almost always the one taking care of Edward. I hadn't noticed because she would return home before I got back. John, who was terrible at cooking, used to buy ready-made food, and if mother-in-law tried to cook, he stubbornly refused her. Looking back, that must have been a strategy to keep me from finding out. Even during that short time, John was so enthralled with his mistress. Mother-in-law initially believed John was really working, but as his absences increased, her suspicions of an affair naturally grew. The climax was when mother-in-law saw John walking arm in arm with an unknown woman, looking intimate. She debated whether to consult me but decided against it. The main reason was that she didn't want to lose the chance to see Amy and Edward. Mother-in-law sobbed in the passenger seat, knowing she cared so much for us. Tears streamed down my cheeks too. Mother-in-law was more considerate of me and Edward than John ever was. This time, John had contacted her, saying he would spend some rare time alone with Edward, but asked her to cover for him, saying he'd be at her house. Mother-in-law, suspecting a lie, worried about Edward and contacted me. I despised John from the bottom of my heart for involving so many people, I thought bitterly. At the hotel, after explaining the situation, we were made to wait in the lobby. Then, a man and a woman with guilty expressions on their faces emerged, along with Mom. I was getting bored. I played a law with Henry, who was Edward's friend from daycare. Henry looked around and said, "Looks like my dad hasn't arrived yet." He seemed a bit disappointed. John's mistress was Isabella, another mom from the daycare. I wasn't sure how long the affair had been going on, but these two fools had boldly involved our children. Apparently, they had told their sons that their respective parents would join them later. How despicable. John had booked 2 rooms, one for the children and the other for themselves. So repulsive. Thanks to the hotel's kindness, mother-in-law and I were allowed to stay in a room for a while, where she looked after the children in the other room. Isabella, having an affair with my husband and then talking to me normally at committee meetings, was unbelievable. I spoke in a calm tone. I thought Amy hadn't noticed anything. It was so funny. Isabella laughed. What is this woman? I never would have guessed that Isabella, who seemed so fragile and beautiful, was actually this spiteful. I stared at her quietly, pondering the unpredictability of people. John himself seemed a bit taken aback by Isabella's true nature. This woman, without being asked, happily began to talk about how and when she started her affair with John. Their relationship began when our children were in senior kindergarten. On a day I was sick and couldn't attend a parent meeting, so I asked John to go in my place. It was Isabella who made the first move. We had known each other as families and had each other's contact information. From that day on, they began to communicate more frequently. It started with complaints about their spouses but gradually turned into personal conversations. Soon, they began meeting more often, and it didn't take long for their relationship to become romantic. But now it's all over. What a pity, Isabella chuckled, her nonchalant attitude heard loud and clear. I said, "You seem quite relaxed for someone about to face serious consequences." Ignoring her surprised look, I stood up decisively, facing my bewildered husband. I said, "Come on, get up and check out. I've called a ride for you, so get ready quickly," I said with a slight smile as I left the room. Seeing Isabella's face twitch a bit from my remark felt oddly satisfying. Now begins the hellish drive. The trip isn't over until we're home, I thought to myself. After checking out, as we headed to the parking lot, Henry ran joyfully towards the person he was waiting for, Henry's dad, Tom, Isabella's husband. "Sorry to keep you waiting, Henry. Have you been good?" Tom said in his usual calm manner. "Dad, can Edward and I go home first?" Mom and you need to talk, Henry said gently, and the two boys happily got into my car. Thank you, we'll have a long talk on the way home, I said, glaring at Isabella. I had learned from contacting Tom that he was supposedly at work and Isabella had lied about visiting her parents far away to come here. Both of them were utterly despicable. I was forced to come here because John threatened to use Edward to ostracize Henry at school if I didn't. Isabella started with a shallow lie. Really? You seemed so eager to tell me everything just a while ago. I continued calmly. Isabella laughed. What is this woman? I thought, staring at her quietly, pondering the unpredictability of people. John himself seemed taken aback by Isabella's true nature. She happily began to talk about how and when she started her affair with John, and it was unbelievable to hear. Their relationship began when our children were in senior kindergarten. On a day I was sick and couldn't attend a parent meeting, so I asked John to go in my place. It was Isabella who made the first move. We had known each other as families and had each other's contact information. From that day on, they began to communicate more frequently. It started with complaints about their spouses but gradually turned into personal conversations. Soon, they began meeting more often, and it didn't take long for their relationship to become romantic. But now it's all over. What a pity, Isabella chuckled with a nonchalant attitude. I said, you seem quite relaxed for someone about to face serious consequences. I ignored her surprised look, standing up decisively, facing my bewildered husband. I placed the voice recorder with our earlier conversation in Tom's hand as Isabella desperately tried to grab it. Don't bother, I have another copy just for myself, I said, smiling as I got into my car. As I drove away, John's pathetic voice called out from behind, wait, what am I supposed to do now? Go home alone. Oh, but I thought you might feel lonely, so I arranged a ride for you too. I pointed behind John. Behind him stood my colleague Emma and her husband, who was also a friend from college. Apparently, John owed him a big favor and couldn't stand up to him. I glanced over and saw they were already scolding him. Emma gave me a look that said, leave it to me. Though my husband was a disappointment, I was lucky to have supportive people around me. As I expected, everyone's ride home was hellish. Isabella desperately denied her relationship with John in the car, but no one believed her with the voice recorder playing. Eventually, she admitted to having other affairs. I don't know if John was serious, but he was the one being played from the start. The reason Isabella targeted John was so petty because Edward got the lead role in a school play over Henry. I was furious. I planned to make him pay a hefty alimony. Henry's custody went to Tom, of course. He said he was going back to his parents' place, a bit far away. John came home late that night, looking like a ghost. It seems like he got a good scolding from Emma and her husband. John always said his college friends were very important to him, as if it were a mantra from the beginning of our marriage. Now, because of this incident, John probably won't be invited to their gatherings anymore. It's nothing but karma. He brought this upon himself. He should regret it. What angered me the most was that every time he met his mistress, John told Edward, today it's a secret between us men, okay? Don't tell Mom. Edward kept that promise and never told me anything. When I found out, I was moved to tears. John and I successfully finalized our divorce. You stupid man, how can you face your late father now? Don't ever show your face again, mother-in-law said, slapping him. John finally realized the gravity of his actions and cried like a child. But my heart didn't waver. Afterward, John requested a transfer to a branch outside the prefecture. He paid the alimony and is keeping up with child support. As for me and Edward, we're living with mother-in-law at her place. I considered returning to my parents' home, but my father has remarried and has a new family. Living together would be impossible. Mother-in-law suggested we stay with her until our lives stabilize. People are often surprised by our unique relationship. But I still cherish mother-in-law like my real mother. I hesitated about what to call her, but I still call her Renda. We're keeping it a secret, but we plan to celebrate her 60th birthday at that hotel. I splurged and booked the most expensive room. This should turn the unpleasant memories into enjoyable ones. My job became far, and Edward had to transfer schools, but Tom's parents lived near our former in-laws, so the boys ended up in the same school again. That was a surprise. Once things settle down, I might rent an apartment near work. But for now, I want to cherish this time a little longer.
I've been saving up a lot lately. My name's Cassie, and I can't help but smirk at my phone with a sneaky laugh. I'm 29 now, married for 2 years, and working hard as a housewife. Some of my coworkers think my smirk is weird, but I can't stop because I'm so close to saving enough money to build my dream home. The balance in my bank account is almost there. My husband, Max, and I don't have kids yet, but we've always planned to have some once we have our own home. I wanted to stay single a bit longer, but at 27, I fell in love with Max, who's a bit older than me. We work at the same company but in different departments, which can be awkward, but I've stuck with it because finding a new job would mean less money. Now, after a lot of hard work, I'm almost ready to buy our dream home. It's been quite a journey. Life with my husband is smooth sailing, and our savings are growing steadily. We're content with our ordinary jobs and our plan to buy a simple home. Finding joy in this regular life is what makes me happiest. But there's one big hiccup: my relationship with my in-laws. It's the toughest part of being married. When I come home from work to our small rented apartment, seeing my in-laws' shoes at the door instantly drains me. They seem to be here again today. I let out a heavy sigh. I'm home. Oh, you're back. The one who responds isn't my husband, Max, but my mother-in-law, comfortably seated on our cramped sofa. Good evening. Do you always come home this late? Our in-laws live just 3 train stops away, which is too close for comfort. That's why my mother-in-law often drops by without considering the inconvenience. You're home late again. What about Max's dinner? This happens too often. No sympathy for my long work hours, just complaints from my mother-in-law. I'm sorry, work was hectic. I'll cook something now. Max has been home for a while. Cassie, aren't you a bit inefficient? Even though Max and I work at the same company, our jobs are very different. Max rarely has overtime in his department, but he earns less. My department, however, is crucial to the company, often requiring me to work late. That's why I earn the highest salary in the company. I never bring this up myself, and I wish Max would, but maybe his pride gets in the way. He never speaks up. Right now, he's just quietly drinking his tea. Even though we both work, I feel like Max could pitch in a bit with the housework, but he steadfastly avoids it. Whether it's shopping, laundry, cleaning, preparing the bath, or cooking, when he gets home from work, he's either glued to the TV or absorbed in his phone. Oblivious to all this, my mother-in-law, as usual, came over to criticize me today. It's okay. I already had dinner with Max. Oh, you've eaten? We had some amazing sushi. I decided to treat Max to something nice for a change. I see. I was taken aback when I heard the name of the sushi restaurant. Isn't that an upscale place? Though surprised, since my mother-in-law footed the bill, I decided to let it slide and started heading to the kitchen to make my own dinner. But my mother-in-law stopped me. Cassie, I hate to ask, but could you do me a favor? I'm a bit short on cash this month. Could you lend me some? Just as I suspected, my mother-in-law often asks for money like this. I wanted to say, hold on a second. That doesn't seem right. You went to a fancy sushi restaurant, didn't you? And last month, you said you were struggling and begged for money. I reluctantly gave you $300, even though we're also tight on cash. And the month before that, and the one before that. Aren't you being a bit careless? But I held back and managed a strained smile. I'm sorry, we're all having a tough time this month. Can't you do anything for your struggling parents? You're the cold one, not me. Who's really cold here? Your son, who neglects his duties at home, leaves his wife alone, and goes out to eat sushi. Seems pretty cold to me. Finally, my husband Max chimed in. Cassie's mom is in a tough spot. Can't you lend her a hand? Oh, so we're really struggling this month, huh? Well, Mom, I'll help you out. Max sighed and pulled $500 from his wallet, handing it to his mother. Max is such a kind and wonderful son, unlike Cassie. I was stunned as my mother-in-law shot me a glare and headed for the door. I thought she was leaving, but then she turned back and glared at me again. Max, if you ever want to divorce your money-hungry wife, you're always welcome to come back home. I'll keep that in mind. With a slam, my mother-in-law left. What was that all about? I turned to Max, who was already lounging on the sofa with his phone. I confronted him. Why did you give her $500? If we have that much extra cash, why not put it towards our household expenses? I had my reasons for asking. While Max pays the rent for this apartment, that's the extent of his contributions. I cover all the bills like utilities, phone, groceries, and other expenses because Max refuses to chip in. What do you mean? I pay the rent, don't I? You expect more than just that. You're so greedy. That's Max's usual way of avoiding financial responsibility. I'm taking care of everything else, including the phone bill you're holding. It's understandable you earn more, but I only make a bit more than your salary. We're barely making ends meet with our expenses and savings. Oh, you have enough to save? Then you should be fine. Suddenly, he reached out his hand when I mentioned savings. What's this for? I gave my mom $500, and now I'm broke. Can you lend me some cash? What? Seriously. This is unbelievable. Despite keeping almost all of his salary except for rent, Max always claims he's short on money every month. He used to justify it by saying, "A man needs to socialize and entertain," and I reluctantly went along. But not today. Why should I foot the bill for you and your mom's sushi? Why am I responsible for that? It's a way to honor parents. What about me? Neither Max nor my mother-in-law ever show appreciation. It feels like I'm just a paycheck to them. And what was that about considering divorce? Exactly what it sounds like. If you keep being so tight-fisted, I might have to consider it. With that, Max locked himself in the bedroom. He even went as far as locking the bedroom door. In our tiny apartment, there aren't many places to go. With the bedroom inaccessible, my only option was to sleep on the sofa. These days, amid all the stress, the only solace I find is in checking my bank account balance. After enduring yet another round of sarcasm and financial demands from my mother-in-law, I opened my phone before starting my overtime shift at work. Logging into my savings account, which I've had since I was single, I thought everything was on track for our dream home. That is, until I saw something that made me freeze. "What's going on?" I exclaimed, abruptly apologizing to my boss before rushing home. "Max, are you here?" "Oh, what's going on? You're home early today." Max looked surprised. Before him lay an assortment of what looked like expensive sushi, and he wasn't alone. "Welcome home, Cassie. We're just visiting." Both in-laws were present, not just my mother-in-law, but my father-in-law too. I couldn't help but wonder why they were here. "What's happening?" "We're having sushi." "Want some, Cassie?" "Sushi? Where did this come from?" "Oh, we had some extra cash," they replied. Pressing for more details, both Max and my in-laws seemed taken aback. I grabbed Max's collar, as if to keep him from escaping, and he reluctantly handed me something. It was the bank book for the account I had just checked online. Flipping it open, I was left speechless when I saw the transaction history. "What's going on? How did you withdraw this?" I demanded, my anger rising. "Well, I just guessed the PIN, and it worked. Lucky me, right?" Max replied casually, showing no remorse for taking out a large sum of money without my consent. I was furious and on the verge of exploding at Max for his nonchalant attitude. How dare you take my money without asking? The funds I had diligently saved since my single days had been withdrawn without my knowledge. "Come on, we're married, aren't we? What's mine is yours. Don't be so uptight. This is the savings I've worked hard for since before we got married. Give it back. Relax, Cassie. What's yours is mine, naturally," Max said dismissively. Living off Max's support while secretly saving such a large amount of money. "You're so greedy," Max accused, his tone accusatory. "Yeah, exactly. You should appreciate me more. Who do you think you're depending on? It's unbelievable. I feel like I'm alone in this. Don't joke around. Taking my money like this is no different from theft. Give it back. Who's joking?" Max snapped, clearly startled by the accusation. Annoyed, he continued, "Don't forget, I'm the one paying the rent here. And I have plenty of social obligations to fulfill. Plus, I help my parents." Right. Max is such a wonderful son. You leave the rent to me and secretly save all this money. It's easy for you. You only cover the rent. You hardly ever entertain, yet you ask me for money while supporting your parents. Stop it. You married into this. It's only right for you to respect me and my parents. What's more, be grateful I haven't divorced you for being so useless, Max yelled, grabbing my hand and pushing me out the door. Hey, no sushi for you. Go cool off outside. I never expected to be kicked out. After standing there in shock for a while, I ended up spending the night in a business hotel. The next day, when I returned home, only Max was there. I was relieved the in-laws were gone. But then Max handed me a piece of paper. It was a mutual agreement statement stating that if I didn't obey him, we would divorce. What's this? Listen, if you keep complaining, we're getting divorced. If you don't want that, just obey me silently. I'll take charge of the savings from now on, Max declared, flaunting the bank book. Then he got ready to leave. Where are you going? Out for a drink. What? Do you have a problem? Want a divorce? He taunted with a smirk and left. Such a foolish man. Did he really think threatening divorce would make me comply? My love for Max had completely vanished. Besides, did he seriously think there was still money left in the account he emptied? I had already withdrawn it all and moved it to another account. I felt uneasy keeping a large sum in one place, so I had multiple accounts. The bank book Max took was just one of them. I signed the paper without hesitation. Max's attempt at a threat didn't faze me. It was exactly what I desired. Quickly, I packed my belongings and left the house. I spent another night at a business hotel, and the following day, I took a day off work to file for divorce as soon as the city office opened. Then, I headed straight to a real estate agency. The previous night, while browsing on my phone at the hotel, I stumbled upon a property that caught my attention. A newly built detached family home near the station, perfect for commuting. It was almost love at first sight. The exterior and interior matched what I had envisioned. After viewing it, I made the decision to purchase the house on the spot. From then on, everything happened in a whirlwind. Staying in a business hotel until the move became too costly, so I explained my situation and stayed with a friend while getting ready for the new house. I had to start from scratch with furniture and other arrangements. Amid the whirlwind of activity, I completely forgot about my ex-husband and former in-laws. Hey, Cassie! Max's voice startled me one day when he showed up at my workplace. Oh, right, we work at the same company. As Max loudly called my name, drawing everyone's attention, he approached me without hesitation. Why haven't you been returning my calls? Oh, I didn't think they were important, I replied, remembering Max's persistent calls. I was preoccupied and didn't want the hassle, so I ignored them. You withdrew money from the account on your own, didn't you? Stop playing around. And why haven't you come back home? Do you really want to get divorced? It's fine, I replied nonchalantly. We're already divorced, and that money in the account is mine, so I can do as I please with it, I stated firmly. Max still seemed to view the word divorce as a threat. My casual response left him looking bewildered. What a silly expression. It's almost comical. What divorce? You mean you graciously offered it to me, and I graciously accepted, I remarked. What? I don't accept this, Max protested. Whether you accept it or not, the divorce is final. Oh, and I've already informed the company and completed all the necessary procedures. You might have some paperwork to handle, so make sure to report it to your boss, okay? With that, I redirected my attention to my computer. I'm busy. Where are you living now? You left your belongings at the house, Max inquired. I took what I needed. I'm comfortably settled in with new things I bought. Don't worry about me. And as for your whereabouts, that's none of your concern. This is a matter of privacy, so please refrain from prying any further, I replied firmly. With that, Max fell silent. Eventually, feeling the weight of the stares from my colleagues and boss, Max left the department without saying another word. Cassie's been through a lot. My colleagues sympathized. The comfort of my new home was unparalleled. The The scent of a freshly built house was unforgettable. It was spacious and cozy. However, having just moved in, there were still many things I needed. Today, I was anticipating the delivery of some appliances I had ordered online. Then the intercom rang. Ah, it must be here, I thought as I went to open the door. I immediately regretted it. I cursed myself for not checking the intercom. Standing before me was Mother. Technically, my former mother-in-law, but the words slipped out in my surprise. There she stood, accompanied by my former father-in-law. And further back, Max was lingering. "Long time no see, Cassie. I'm coming in," Mother announced. "Wait, hold on," I protested, taken aback. My former mother-in-law barged into the house and began inspecting it as if assessing its value. "Oh, this property is quite nice. And this furniture is lovely. Move it to my room, will you? Oh, there's a basement too." "Excellent. Then this will be our room," she declared. Excuse me, but what's with these curtains? Dreadful taste. I'll choose new ones for you, so hand over the money," she continued. "The garden is quite spacious. Perhaps I'll start a vegetable garden." What were these people going on about? Confused, I turned to Max. "Max, what is?" "Be grateful, Cassie," Max interjected. I was about to confront them when my former mother-in-law cut in with irritation. I looked at her smug expression. "It's not much of a house, but as a gift for the parents, it's decent. If it's a two-family home, we'll move in. Of course, as the wife, you'll do the housework. We'll be generous and only ask for $1,000 a month for our allowance." What? What on earth is she saying? Are they from another planet? I couldn't comprehend and just tilted my head. "As the wife, I'm single now, you know," I added, surprising both my former mother-in-law and myself. "Max, you didn't tell them?" I questioned. "I don't accept it," Max shouted. But it didn't matter whether he accepted it or not. The divorce was final. We were complete strangers now. Upon hearing my declaration, my former mother-in-law's face paled. "What do you mean you're abandoning us?" "Your parents. My parents live in the countryside. I was planning to invite them over soon," she protested. "Don't joke around. This house is ours," she insisted. "No, it's mine," I retorted. What was she thinking? This house was purchased with my savings in my name. "Then where are we supposed to live?" she demanded. "I don't know. That's not my problem," I replied, feeling the weight of their expectations. Apparently, they had already sold their house, and the contract was finalized. They planned to live a comfortable life in this house with the money from the sale and whatever they could extort from me. It was a frightening plan. "I don't accept this," my former mother-in-law continued to protest. "But it doesn't matter. We're strangers now, and this house is mine. I won't accept it, absolutely not," I asserted firmly. In her anger, my former mother-in-law ripped the curtains. "Hey, what are you doing? These things I don't need. Such bad taste. This is my house. I'll dim as I please," I snapped back. "That's right. What's yours is mine. Everything you own is mine," she insisted. "Listen, I don't accept this divorce, and both my parents and I are going to live here," Max shouted out. "Oh no, this is getting out of hand," I thought, just as I heard sirens. I had secretly called the police when Max and my former mother-in-law barged into the house. Finally, the police arrived. "What are you doing?" "We haven't done anything wrong," they protested. "That's right. If anyone should be taken, it's this woman," my former mother-in-law added. After a scene, they weren't arrested but were escorted away by the police. It had been a tumultuous day. After being released, Max continued to come by, insisting on reconciliation and getting picked up by the police each time. He even followed me to work. So after consulting with my boss, George, he received the stern warning. Misusing his wife's savings and assaulting her new home became the talk of the office, leading to an uncomfortable working environment for Max. His resignation seemed to affect him mentally, and he struggled to find new employment. My former in-laws, having sold their house, moved into the cheap apartment where Max and I had lived. It was an old, poorly maintained place, so it wouldn't have fetched much money. With the money from the sale, it seems like the three of them will be able to live modestly. Finally free from all the drama, I'm relishing the comfort of my own home. Although I offered to have my parents from the countryside move in with me, they're not quite ready to make the move yet. So, for the time being, I'm enjoying the solitude of living alone. Perhaps I'll consider remarrying if the right person comes along. But for now, I'm content. One of the first things on my agenda is to get a dog, something I couldn't do while living in the apartment. I also have plans to try my hand at gardening and to host home parties with friends. As I gaze out the window at the blue sky, I think about all the things I couldn't do before and how I want to embrace and enjoy life from now on.
My name is Emily, and I'm 32 years old, a stay-at-home mom. My husband Benjamin, 34, works a regular office job. We have a beautiful little girl named Mia, and after 8 years of marriage, our 6-year-old daughter has both of us wrapped around her finger. I also have an older sister, Lily, who just turned 35. She recently got divorced due to personality clashes and is now a single mom to her son Logan, who is 4 years old. One day, we had planned a trip to the zoo with just the four of us. Unfortunately, I caught a cold and had to stay in bed. Benjamin decided to take the day off from work and still take Mia and Logan to the zoo. It ended up being just him and Lily alone despite them being in-laws. Little did I know, that day would mark a change. Fast forward to another day. I was walking down the shopping street on my way home from the grocery store when I glimpsed Benjamin and Lily in a cafe by chance. I was puzzled but had to pick up Mia from after-school care soon, so I headed home without dwelling on it. That night, when Benjamin got home, he casually mentioned they ran into each other and sought shelter from the rain in the cafe. I believed him. However, from then on, he started coming home late more often, asking for more pocket money, and going out on his days off. When Lily visited, their relationship seemed more intimate than before, leaving me with a string of suspicions. Despite this, I trusted him. Benjamin still adored Mia, and we seemed to have a good relationship. Little did I know, I was the only one who thought everything was fine. Then, an incident occurred that shattered my illusion. One day, as usual, Lily came over to our house. A friend invited me on a trip. Would you mind taking care of Logan for about a week? It's in the Bahamas, she asked persistently. Initially hesitant, I understood Lily had it tough since her divorce. Despite my reservations, I reluctantly agreed. As Lily's departure approached, Benjamin announced he would be out of town for a few days on a business trip. Surprisingly, it was the same day as Lily's trip to the Bahamas. Was this merely a coincidence? Was it my imagination that Benjamin seemed secretive and overly attached to his phone? Was it my sister's tough times clouding my judgment? The morning of Lily's trip, she arrived with Logan. I noticed immediately that something was wrong. Logan's hand was hot, his body feverish. Lily confirmed he'd had a fever since yesterday. We can't delay. We need to get him to a hospital quickly, I insisted. But then Lily dropped a bombshell. I'll leave Logan to you. Shocked, I protested. You can't possibly leave a sick child behind. I have no choice. We've planned this trip for a while. Please take good care of him, she said, brushing off my concerns. Despite my pleas, she left, leaving me to care for Logan, whose health took precedence over everything else. I couldn't believe it. Logan was suffering with a high fever, and yet his condition worsened from the stress of moving around. I quickly tucked him into bed and placed a cold, damp towel on his forehead. While preparing an ice pillow in the freezer, my husband woke up. Honey, it seems like Logan has a fever, he remarked. Really? My sister's awful. She left Logan like this to go on a trip. I replied, frustration evident in my voice. It can't be helped. They've had this trip planned for a long time, and it's too late to cancel now. You too, dear. Poor Logan. If you're so concerned, then you should take care of him. Honey, can you do something about your business trip? If Logan has a contagious disease, he might pass it on to Mia. I'll take care of Logan, and I need you to take care of Mia, I suggested, hoping my husband would prioritize our daughter over his work. But my hope was dashed. What? That's impossible. If you're worried, why not leave her with your parents? That won't work. Our parents are busy with their jobs, and your parents live too far away to drop her off at this hour. Then it can't be helped. Logan will be fine if we let him rest. Don't worry, he said dismissively. Please don't be so casual about this. What do you want me to do? I can't change my plans. Oh, it's time. I have to go now. Bye. With that, he hurriedly left. Left alone, I immediately called my parents. They couldn't take time off from their sudden work commitments, but they agreed to leave work early and pick up Mia as soon as possible. I felt relieved when my mom assured me they were on their way. Until my mom arrives, I'll have to keep Maya locked in her room. I feel sorry for her, but it can't be helped, I thought to myself. Meanwhile, Logan's condition seemed to be worsening. He started coughing in addition to the fever. In the afternoon, my mom, who had left work early, arrived. I handed Mia over to her and headed straight to the pediatric clinic with Logan. In the car, the motion seemed to make Logan uncomfortable, which was hard to see. The doctor said it was just a common cold and prescribed a fever reducer. He asked us to observe Logan and call an ambulance if his fever went up or if he seemed delirious. I'm sorry, Mom, for leaving Maya with you. I apologize. Don't worry about it. More importantly, I'm concerned about Logan, my mom reassured me. After hanging up with my mom, I decided to call my husband's office. I needed to find out where he was staying on his business trip, just in case. The reply I received was, I should be on paid vacation. I sighed, lifting my voice towards the heavens as if making a plea. A dreaded suspicion was beginning to solidify. Opening my husband's laptop, I had never looked through it before, but a quick scan of his browsing history revealed his destination, the Bahamas. Both flight tickets and hotel bookings were arranged by him. I recognized the hotel's name. It was the same place my sister had mentioned. My sister and husband in the Bahamas at the same time, staying in the same hotel. Such a coincidence seemed next to impossible. The mere fact that my husband was in the Bahamas, taking paid leave while claiming to be on a business trip, was alarming. Curious, I looked at my smartphone, checking my sister's social media posts. There were no new posts, but looking at her recent ones, although not clearly visible, I could tell she was frequently with someone. The glimpses of clothing I could catch were all too familiar. What changed my suspicion into certainty was a photo where the wristwatch of the man she was with was visible, a watch I had given my husband. Though not expensive, it was from a unique manufacturer, making the odds that another man dressed like my husband, wearing the same watch, would appear in my sister's photo infinitesimally small. And then I found the conclusive piece of evidence, a photo titled Window Shopping, with my sister's reflection on the glass. On the edge of that photo, another person's reflection was undeniably my husband. My blissfully ignorant sister must have posted the picture without noticing her husband's reflection in the glass. My hands trembling, I saved all the pictures. There was no mistake about it. My sister and husband were having an affair. Right now, they were together. I felt everything I had built up with my husband crumbling down all at once. I tried calling them numerous times, but soon a voicemail message started playing. It seemed they had turned off their phones. Logan's fever still hadn't broken. Seeing his distressed face, anger started to rise within me. Despite our young child's suffering, despite being in such a difficult situation right now, my sister and husband were probably laughing, enjoying their vacation in the Bahamas. Could there be a worse story? I was trembling with anger, wondering what to do, but that could wait. First, I needed Logan to recover. However, Logan's fever showed no signs of abating. In fact, it seemed to be increasing. I was shocked when I took his temperature. 42 degrees Fahrenheit. Children tend to run high fevers. He had experienced 40 degrees before, but never this high. Why isn't the fever reducer working? Logan was completely drained. It looked painful for him to even move. What should I do? I fought hard to suppress the panic that was threatening to overtake me. I need to call an ambulance, I decided, clutching my smartphone tightly. Mama, Logan murmured in a small voice, his face contorted in pain. He called for his aunt. Unforgivable. I will never forgive them, I thought as my vision seemed to turn red with anger. Logan's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. A week had passed since then. Contrary to my feelings of sorrow, today was a clear day. Staring blankly at the vast blue sky, tears began to spill over. I had lost count of how many times I had cried, yet the tears wouldn't stop. I could feel Maya's hands trembling in mine. My daughter was crying too. As I lifted her up, I saw my parents weeping uncontrollably over her small, trembling shoulders, along with everyone else in attendance. Suddenly, my smartphone vibrated. I put my head down and saw my sister's name on the screen. Hello. Hi, Emily. Long time no see. I just got back from the Bahamas. I've just landed at the airport. I'm off to pick up Logan. Thanks for looking after him, my sister said cheerfully. It felt like a phone call from another world. He's gone to heaven, I muttered to myself. What? My sister on the other end of the phone didn't seem to understand what I had said. Huh? Heaven? What are you talking about? I don't understand. That's what I'm saying. He went to heaven while you were on your trip to the Bahamas. Huh? I don't understand what you're saying. You'll understand when you get here, I replied, my voice heavy with grief. The funeral is over and we're at the crematorium. Huh? Crematorium? My sister sounded confused. When I tried to explain the location of the crematorium, she abruptly hung up the phone. Logan. My sister just got out of the taxi and dramatically changed her expression as she started running. She called his name and looked around, but Logan was nowhere to be found. Where is he? He's not here. Of course he's not. What do you mean? I slowly pointed in one direction towards the crematorium. The crematorium doesn't emit smoke like it used to, but it's true. He's being cremated right now, I whispered. Logan? That day, the day you dropped off Logan, his fever shot up to 42 degrees Fahrenheit all at once. 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The antipyretic we got from the pediatrician had no effect. His condition worsened rapidly. We had to call an ambulance in a panic. So that means Logan is. I don't want to answer that. We're in the middle of a funeral, I said, spreading my arms wide, pointing at the crematorium. Hey, what does this mean? What happened to Logan? Why are you here? Someone shouted in place of my speechless sister. It was my husband. Unbelievably, he had come here with my sister. What does that matter right now? What about Logan? Of course it matters. Not losing to my husband's voice, I shouted back, how can you two just abandon your family and go on a secret love trip? Moreover, Logan had a fever, and even when I said I needed help, you ignored me and went on your trip. Are you out of your mind? Who? What are you talking about? I already know. When I asked your company, they said you had taken paid leave. I checked your computer and found a booking for a trip to the Bahamas. You were on the same flight, if not the same hotel, as my sister. You think you can just claim it's coincidence? I must have had a terrifying look on my face. My husband lost his words under my intimidating stare. Tell me, Emily, did he die? Do you have the luxury to ask such a question now? What do you think we're doing here? Why do you think I'm in a simple, modest dress, standing at a crematorium? Don't you get it? No. My sister's scream dominated the scene as she broke down crying. I looked down at her with cold eyes. You have no right to cry. You abandoned your son to go on a secret trip with my husband. You're the worst kind of person. I was lonely. I was so lonely all by myself, so I just what? Reached out to your sister's husband? What do you mean? I've done nothing wrong. It's not my fault. The real villain here is my ex-husband who refused to take our son. And it's not just him, it's also the fault of our parents who never helped me with the child. And Emily too, my sister, never taking responsibility. I didn't choose to have a child. I didn't choose to be a single mother. I wanted him to take our son if we were going to get divorced, but he refused. I've been struggling alone because of that. But I didn't. I couldn't. Logan? Lily's voice broke as she said his name. It was her lover. My husband comforted her as she collapsed into tears. It seemed they were no longer interested in hiding their affair. Don't blame everyone else for your problems. Our parents and I have helped as much as we could. You can't justify leaving a sick child to go on a tryst. Not realizing how rotten you are, you're the worst. Hey Emily, isn't that a bit harsh? Lily just lost Logan. She's in shock. Shut up, accomplice. I'm divorcing you, so be ready to pay what you owe. What? What does that have to do with anything? It has everything to do with it. My husband and I argued while my sister cried. It was a chaotic situation. Our parents approached my tear-streaked sister, started blaming them. To add, Mom, why didn't you take care of Logan properly? Why did you let Logan? Suddenly, there was a loud slap. Enough with your nonsense. It was my father who slapped my sister's face. Don't blame others when you were the one who abandoned your child. And having an affair with your sister's husband, you shameless woman. I'm ashamed to have raised you like this. My sister cried even louder at her father's words. I wanted to punch my husband too. I was glaring at him when, Mommy, I heard a little boy's voice. My sister quickly turned around. There. What? Logan? My sister ran towards them, but the man quickly moved Logan out of her reach. Hey, what are you doing, Andrew? The man holding Logan was Andrew, my sister's ex-husband. He was the one who divorced my sister, citing irreconcilable differences. What are you doing leaving Logan like that? He's my son too. I complied with the court's decision that it's better for a mother to have custody, even though you insisted on not giving me parental rights. But you wouldn't let me see him, no matter how many times I asked. My worry proved justified. You're not fit to be Logan's mother. Just shut up. You should just pay the child support. I'd pay any amount for Logan, but you left him without care. You don't even know how critical his condition was, and you're out on your affair trip. That day, when Logan's condition deteriorated, I panicked and called an ambulance. When we got to the hospital and while he was being treated, I called her parents and Andrew, Logan's father. He was surprised when I told them my sister was on a trip with my husband. After that, Logan, who was discharged from the hospital in good health, was resting at Andrew's and his parents' house. Wait a minute, you're saying Logan's okay? Then whose? My husband asked, puzzled, staring at the crematorium. It's her grandmother. Our grandmother. Mother to me and my sister, and great-grandmother to Maya and Logan, I replied. She was in her advanced years and bedridden, living in a nursing facility. She passed away recently from old age. Despite being bedridden, our grandma was quite lucid and doted on her great-grandchildren, Maya and Logan. Whenever we visited her at the nursing home, she would light up with joy. Her sudden departure left us, my parents and Maya, in deep sorrow, unable to do anything but grieve. Logan, who had been ill, couldn't attend the funeral. However, since he'd called my sister to the crematorium, Andrew was there. His fever had subsided, and he looked well. You tricked us. No one said Logan had died. My sister accused us with her eyes, but it was we who had the right to accuse. I didn't hear about Grandma's death either, she snapped back. I tried calling both of you several times to tell you about Grandma's passing, but the line was always busy. Considering how kind she was to you, it's unfathomable that you're this late. Enough. You're all making fools of us. Logan, let's go home. You don't want to stay with such a man. You want to be with Mom, right? Andrew, give Logan back right now. Will you ever stop? The one who scolded my sister, who was bearing down on Andrew, was her father. Do you still think you can keep Logan with you after all of this? What you've done could have gotten you in legal trouble for child abandonment. You've proven to be an unfit mother. Never think you'll be allowed near Logan again. Logan will be raised by Andrew. Dad, how could you? We've decided to fully support Andrew and hire a lawyer. You are no longer our daughter. We're cutting ties with you. Mom. My sister's face went pale at her parents' harsh words. I stood in front of her with a firm stance. I'm divorcing my husband, so why don't the two of you stick together? You seem fine leaving your children behind to go on an overseas trip. Upon hearing this, my husband burst out, Emily, wait, it was just a lapse in judgment. Lily and I were just fooling around. The ones who matter to me are you and Mia. Then my sister also started shouting, what do you mean fooling around? You told me you no longer loved Emily and that I was the only one you loved. Stop the noise. I just love my daughter. Don't mess with me. As the storm reignited between my husband and my sister, we left the scene with my grandmother's ashes. After that, despite many disagreements with the help of a lawyer, I managed to settle everything. Logan went to live with his dad. I thought he might feel sad being away from his mother, but he was rather pleased. It turned out my sister wasn't functioning as a mother at all. My husband and I had our disputes. Well, more accurately, my husband was absent. After being scolded by both my parents and his, he was feeling down. Then our daughter landed the knockout punch. I don't need daddy. She might be only 6 years old, but girls mature quickly. She must have understood her father's despicable actions in her own way. When our daughter looked at my husband like he was a bug, I couldn't help but laugh. For my husband, who adored his daughter, no, my ex-husband, there could be no greater punishment. He was allowed to see his daughter, but whether she wanted to see him was up to her. And so, the storm came to an end. Maya and I returned to my parents' home and are living peacefully. My parents are thrilled to live with Mia. She's starting elementary school next year, so we're excited about the preparations. I plan to find a job when she starts school. Logan comes by every now and then with Andrew. He looks totally different. His face is brighter and he's always smiling. Meanwhile, my sister and my ex-husband seem to have ended their relationship quite easily. I guess it was really just a fling for my ex-husband. Perhaps upset about being disliked by his daughter, he dumped my sister without hesitation. However, his despicable affair with his wife's sister became known at his company, which questioned his character. He was relocated to a remote area that will make it even more difficult for him to see his daughter. As for my sister, after being abandoned by everyone, she seemed to live like an empty shell for a while. Then she disappeared. We filed a missing persons report, but I have a feeling we'll never find my sister. That's just the feeling I get.
Hi, I'm a lady who works as a cook. I recently got married, and I'm really enjoying being a newlywed. I usually keep my past to myself and don't talk much about it. I don't have many friends, but I tell people I grew up like any other kid, even though it wasn't that simple. I had a tough childhood, but I was lucky to have my grandpa who loved me a lot. He was like my only family because I didn't have parents around. My grandpa worked hard, sometimes at construction sites or collecting and selling things like paper or fruits and veggies. I don't have baby photos because we couldn't afford them, but when I turned 6, my grandpa made sure I had a picture taken every year on my birthday to capture my growth. I didn't go to kindergarten, but my grandpa taught me basics like the alphabet and numbers. My grandpa didn't have much money, but he was well respected in our neighborhood. The neighbors would pitch in to help take care of me because they knew my grandpa was working hard to raise me. This meant I got to have warm meals and play with the older kids in the neighborhood, who taught me a lot of things. When my grandpa finished work, he'd come get me. Our house was small and old, with just one bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. It could get pretty uncomfortable in the extremes of weather, but we managed okay. In the summer, my grandpa fixed up an old fan he found, and in the winter, he washed and reused old blankets to keep me warm. He did everything he could to take care of me, even though we didn't have much. Our neighbors were also struggling, but they still helped us a lot. They came to school with me on my first day, took turns attending parent-teacher meetings at my grandpa's request, and even packed food for my school trips as a way to say thank you for his hard work. My grandpa was a handyman who could fix just about anything around the house. In our friendly neighborhood, people helped each other out with their skills, but gossip still circulated. Some folks couldn't help but wonder why my grandpa was raising me alone in such tough circumstances. He never really talked about my parents when I was growing up. Whenever I asked, he'd just say they had passed away soon after I was born and were now in heaven. When I was younger, I thought they had died from some serious illness like cancer. But as I got older, I started hearing different stories, mainly from the women in the neighborhood. They'd whisper about how my grandpa had never been married and how nobody had ever seen my mom or dad. It was confusing because my grandpa had always told me they were my real parents. And if I had parents, shouldn't I have had a grandma too? It didn't add up. As I listened to her, I realized something strange. We didn't have any family photos of my parents, not even one of my grandma. Our photo album only contained pictures that my grandpa insisted we take every year, along with some snapshots our neighbors had taken of us. When I reached middle school and started going through puberty, I began to rebel a bit, questioning my identity more and more. Living only with my grandpa made it even harder. I had so many questions about my parents, and by 9th grade, I couldn't hold them in any longer. I sat my grandpa down and bombarded him with questions, desperate for answers about where my mom and dad were, whether they were alive or dead, and why there were no photos of them or my grandma. I felt like I was interrogating him like a criminal, but I needed to know. As I got emotional and started crying, my grandpa just held me close and reassured me. He explained that my parents couldn't raise me, so they left me with him when I was a baby, hoping to come back for me someday. He showed me a small bracelet they had left behind, saying it was with me when I was born in the hospital. Seeing that bracelet, some of my curiosity eased. Even though I learned that my parents had abandoned me, knowing that my grandpa loved me and raised me with care was enough. From that day on, I started to find some peace within myself. I began to see a way out of the challenges of puberty. College wasn't an option for me due to our financial situation, and I didn't want to add to my grandpa's burdens, so I made up my mind about my career before even starting high school. Grandpa, I said, I want to be a cook. I plan to take career classes during my senior year, earn my cooking license, and find a job right after graduation. My grandpa asked if I was sure I didn't want to go to college, offering to do whatever it took to save up for tuition. I reassured him that cooking was my passion and that I wanted to set things up so he wouldn't feel guilty about it. True to my word, once I reached my senior year of high school, I dove into cooking classes and earned several licenses. I secured a job a month before graduation and received my first paycheck just a week after. With it, I bought some steak to celebrate, though I couldn't afford to dine out. Back home, I surprised my grandpa with the steak and handed him an envelope containing some of my earnings. "This is for you, Grandpa," I said. "It's what's left after buying the steaks." My grandpa was speechless. "Patty," he finally said, "I can't accept this. You worked hard for this money. You should use it for yourself. I can't possibly take it." He insisted, pushing the envelope back toward me. "Grandpa, if you don't take it, I'll leave home. Why should you be the only one doing things for me? I really wanted to give you this money," I threatened, feeling a surge of frustration. Eventually, my grandpa relented, tears welling up as he accepted the envelope. He tucked it into a book he enjoyed reading. Sharing that steak meal in the place I'd always called home felt incredibly special. For the first time in my life, I felt proud to do something for my grandpa. We chatted happily as we ate, until a knock interrupted us. Who could be knocking at this hour? My grandpa wondered aloud as I went to answer the door. To our surprise, 2 police officers stood there. "Is Richard O'Leary here?" they asked, and I confirmed that he was my grandpa. "And you must be Patty Rowland?" they inquired, and I affirmed that too. "Both of you need to come with us to the police station," they stated matter-of-factly. When I asked why, they informed us, "Mr. O'Leary is being accused of kidnapping a child. You both need to come with us." I was stunned. Kidnapping? I couldn't fathom why my grandpa was being accused of such a heinous crime. I protested that he wasn't that kind of person, but the police insisted we accompany them. That night, my grandpa and I found ourselves in a police car headed to the station. Despite the gravity of the situation, my grandpa remained oddly calm. We waited in a designated area until eventually, the police returned with some other individuals accompanying them. A woman in her 50s entered the room, accompanied by a couple holding hands. She approached us, pointing accusingly at my grandpa. "That's him. He's the one who kidnapped the president's daughter." She exclaimed loudly, shocked and confused. I demanded answers. "What do you mean? Who did my grandpa supposedly kidnap?" I shouted back at her. The police intervened, trying to calm both the woman and me down. Behind the shouting woman, the couple stepped forward, and the woman addressed me with tears in her eyes. "Are you Patty?" she asked, and I awkwardly nodded in response. Suddenly, she embraced me and burst into tears. "Patty, it's Mom. I'm your mother." Her words hit me like a bolt from the blue. I was stunned and bewildered, but my grandpa's composed demeanor added to my confusion. He stood up calmly and addressed her. "So, you've finally returned. Only now. Are you okay?" The woman in her 50s scoffed, accusing my grandpa of kidnapping. I vehemently protested his innocence, while the couple watched on, clearly perplexed. The woman in her 50s went on to explain that a couple had visited her orphanage, claiming they had left their baby there and had now returned to reclaim their child. They left behind a letter stating their intention to return for the child, along with hospital paperwork. I was about 3 or 4 at the time. However, despite searching through records and adoption papers, we found nothing about the child. Then, a distant memory surfaced. There was a child who went missing years ago, causing a major commotion. Despite reporting to the police and filing missing child reports, she was never found. I recalled an old man who used to work at the orphanage abruptly quitting around that time. He had been overly attentive to the children, and I had considered firing him before he vanished. Could he have been involved in kidnapping a child from the orphanage, leaving behind a distraught woman? We underwent DNA testing as my grandpa calmly observed the couple. He asked the police, "Are they truly Patty's parents?" The police insisted we wait for the results. Then, my grandpa pleaded with the officers, offering to stay in jail if necessary, but asking for the chance to tell his side of the story. Grasping the officer's hands, he began to speak. The police acknowledged his right to defend himself. Grandpa agreed to share his story once the DNA confirmed the couple's parentage. Reluctantly, the police consulted the couple, who agreed to the arrangement if it meant hearing the truth. While awaiting the DNA results, my grandpa remained at home under recognizance, and I continued my routine, going to and from work. 2 days later, the DNA results came in, showing a 99.99% match. After 20 years, I finally met my parents. Hearing the news, I was overcome with a strange mix of emotions. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably, but my parents embraced me, soothing my sobs. The orphanage director glared at my grandpa with fury, as if she could kill him on the spot. "Now you must arrest this old man for kidnapping. Were you planning to ruin my establishment?" She raged, her anger palpable. True to his word, my grandpa began his tale, producing a stack of papers from home and presenting them to the police one by one. "It's true that I worked as a janitor at the orphanage, not far from where I live now," he began. "One morning, I arrived early to find a young child sleeping outside the orphanage, curled up in a ball. I assumed she had been abandoned by her parents. Concerned for her well-being, I tried to bring her inside, but she woke up and, with her black eyes, called me Grandpa." Grandpa continued, explaining how the child handed him a bag containing a doll, paperwork, and a letter promising to return for their daughter. "I took her into the orphanage, where she began to live," he recounted. "While cleaning, I often saw the child, but she always seemed to have a dark expression. It wasn't until about a month later that I discovered the reason. The woman was abusing her, especially when the orphanage faced financial strain due to overcrowding. Another child had arrived, and she took out her frustration on this poor girl." Grandpa described how the child was forced to do arduous chores, her hands red and bleeding from the harsh treatment. "I confronted the director multiple times, urging her to stop mistreating the child," he continued. "But instead of listening, she fired me. As I was leaving, I couldn't bear to see the child so unhappy. That's why I did what I did," my grandpa explained, his voice tinged with remorse. He recounted how he had taken me in after witnessing the neglect and abuse I suffered under the orphanage director's care. "The director didn't even bother to read the documents in the bag," he continued, neglecting her duties and subjecting me to abuse. "That's why I took Patty in, to protect her and raise her as my own granddaughter." After his revelation, the police and I were left in a state of uncertainty. The orphanage director, however, remained defiant, accusing my grandpa of fabricating stories to tarnish her reputation. "I'll sue you for slander," she threatened, her voice dripping with venom. The police pressed my grandpa for evidence to support his claims. With confidence, he mentioned a former employee, Mrs. Cumberland, who could attest to the abuse. While we awaited Mrs. Cumberland's testimony, I was speechless, grappling with the truth unfolding before me. In the late afternoon, Mrs. Cumberland arrived at the police station, armed with photographs she had taken of my injured hands and other signs of abuse. My parents, upon seeing the evidence, were overcome with emotion. The undeniable proof left the orphanage director cornered, and my parents wasted no time in announcing their intention to sue her for her crimes. Despite her pleas for forgiveness, she was arrested and charged with child abuse. That night, my grandpa and I returned home, the weight of the day's revelations heavy on our minds. From my parents, I learned the heartbreaking truth. They had left me at the orphanage due to financial hardship, hoping to reclaim me once they were stable. When they finally returned, They discovered I was missing and unregistered. Only recently did they learn of the possibility that my grandpa had taken me in. Although their actions couldn't be excused, my parents found solace in the fact that they had finally found me after years of searching. They faced repercussions for abandoning me, but now they sought to alleviate their guilt. I harbored no resentment toward my parents. I was simply eager and anxious to finally meet them. Nor did I hold any blame toward my grandpa, who had saved me and showered me with love and care during my time with him. His unwavering support was the reason I couldn't hate my parents. I assured them that I understood their circumstances and expressed gratitude for their efforts to find me. As my mom hugged me, tears streaming down her face, she knelt before my grandpa. Without him, I wouldn't have had such a wonderful upbringing, she acknowledged. Despite his protests, my parents insisted on taking care of him and urged us to live together as one family. Eventually, we moved in with my parents, but the adjustment wasn't easy, as we had spent more time apart than together. Eventually, my parents arranged for a separate house for my grandpa and me next to theirs, allowing us to live comfortably while still being close to family. After work, we would gather for dinner and watch TV together, just like any other family. After I got married, my parents invited my grandpa to live with us, and we seamlessly merged into one big family. Meanwhile, my parents pursued legal action against the orphanage director, adamant that they couldn't forgive her. During the proceedings, I met my husband, who was working as a prosecutor on the case. He admired my grandpa's selflessness in raising a child who wasn't his own for nearly 2 decades. It made me reflect on whether I could have done the same in his shoes. I hold my grandpa in the highest regard and wish him a long and healthy life. Thank you all for listening to my story. Your support and comments mean a lot to me. Wishing you all a day filled with happiness and good fortune.